I can't believe it. They trying to put my dog out there. But we should have known that this was coming. New thread. Was Berserker Lancelot in Fate Zero weaker compared to his Saber and original form? While Berserker Lancelot has shown incredible feats, his former self as Saber showed more mana, efficiency, and power. All his physical prowess is obviously different between Saber and Berserker. I kind of forgot, but in a way, servants, even when they are the strongest, can be weaker if the master's mana is weak, or low, or don't have enough to replenish their own. So my question is, was Saber Lancelot actually stronger than Berserker Lancelot if he had more mana? And how strong would Berserker Lancelot be if he had his original amount of mana and he was at his peak from when he was a Saber? So this is an interesting question. I'm here for it. Now, if you read both stories, you know that there's a lot of caveats going on, which is always right. But ultimately, neither one of these characters come as they originally are. And I believe that we went through this one time with the Zokin vid back in Fate Zero, how his Berserker variant wasn't supposed to be Berserker. He got summoned by Karya, and then Zokin made him alter the summoning to place Madness Enhancement on him. But when you think about it, the same thing can be said about Saber Lancelot. His summoning was one forged by the Lion King, and he was also one of the many servants that received one of her gifts, which completely alter the trajectory of the servant altogether because these gifts are so powerful. So neither one of them are truly base form. If we're basing it between the two, I'm leaning Berserker a lot just based off the things that we've been shown, which is kind of strange because you would think that it would be clear cut it's Saber, right? But we gotta look back at Lancelot's resume. So going back to Fate Zero, adding the forbidden alien ingredient in the incantations of summoning, Karya included 2 lines of incantations that would rob the sanity of the summoned heroic spirit and demote the hero to a level of Berserker. Yet thou serve with thine eyes clouded in chaos, thou bound in the cage of madness. I am he who commands those chains. And if you even pay attention to the wording here, just going by the wording of the work itself, the novel regards him putting Lancelot to a Berserker as a demotion. Of course, this is probably more figurative than it is literal, but my thing is, everything more so points to it being Saber. And then we go over to Camelot, where he's on the Lion King side, and this is from Camelot Zero, which is the prequel to the chapter. Lancelot received the gift of ferocity, for he vowed to ascertain the situation as a person without martyring himself for justice. In other words, he had a core refusal to relent, because in his eyes, that's what held her back the first time, which is also kind of funny because we see him doing that anyway. We see him doing that with the squad, namely his son Galahad. And this is a perfect segue into why all of this is so conflicting. They tell us that Lancelot is the best. They tell us that Lancelot is the strongest of the table, that everybody should just bow to his knees, that he's even better than Arthur himself in terms of skill. They do a whole lot of talking, but when it's time for us to get Lancelot showcases, that's hardly what's actually going on. And I told one of my people in Discord, Agent, I told him his time has come because he has been spamming this picture for months, claiming that Lancelot is a fraud. And he very well may have possibly should have been in the fraud video. So we're gonna see if that holds up. He says Lancelot is a hype man, fights Agravain only for movie hype, and he never actually beats Agravain because, as we saw, he was still present by the end of the chapter. Sir Agravain, should you not be more worried about yourself? Your limbs are broken, your chest torn open, and you've lost an eye. You must have fought quite the foe. Indeed, he was a man of incredible power, but this time my obsessiveness won the day. Oh, forgive me for not being able to offer you proof. Even if he is dead, I cannot show you his head. So technically, he lost to Agravain too. You can't even give him the, oh, he gave him the mortal wound, because everybody was disappearing by that point in time anyway. Mind you, this is while having the gift to not hold back. Back to the resume. He is only brought up to hype the round table in Artoria, and we have a list of people that Lancelot has went against, and Agent claims that he has definitively beaten none of them. People confused on who the strongest is, but you don't want people to get the right answer. I have the solution. His name is Lancelot, and they call him 007. That 007 being 0 relevant wins, 0 high tier noble phantasms, 7 strongest statements. That one hurt. That one hurt. I'm not gonna lie, he's on his ass. He's on his ass, and honestly, I didn't hear a lie, okay? Go take out Gawain by yourself. No. Get an old man to do it, King Hassan. Or a regular human to do it, Bedivere. Yeah. Be relevant? Nah, I'ma just appear every so years to get used as a gag for MASH, my superior. So when I first seen this, and I meant to say something then, I don't know why I didn't. I'm gonna be honest, I just thought he was hating. I thought he was dick riding, but now as I look at it today, this picture gets funnier the more I look over it. And this goes into another reason why I hate this favoritism trope. Right? Because you end up with situations like this where technically this isn't untrue. When he fought against Gil in Fate Zero, both times, he never beat Gil either times. He fended Gil off, he survived against Gil, but that's the whole thing about being a certain level of a character. When you're supposedly high tier, you have it the hardest because a lot of times things are not gonna go in your favor. And Nasu just went over this in the interview that we just covered. He doesn't like the trope of somebody being the strongest character and just running over everybody. And this reflects in the way that he writes. So what does he do? He has all these different characters that are supposed to be strong. He takes the mid character and have that character out the actual strongest. Everybody champions the mid man. In the fight between Gil and Lancelot, even though they're both high tier, Lancelot would be the mid man. And that's fine in increments. It was fine with Lancelot. It was fine with Shiro to a degree. Everybody loves the underdog. It's not anything new. It gives them a sense of relatability. He's an underdog, just like me. No, he's an underdog. You just suck. But people will latch on to that because it gives them a sense of belonging. They love to tear the top guy down. Whereas if the strongest had won, and I brought this up in the fraud video, nobody says a word because, well, they were the strongest. When Gil ran through Medea in the Fate route, when Gil ran through Herc and UB-Dub, literally obliterated them. Nobody has nothing to say. Not a word. Silence. Muted. But let him fuck up. All of a sudden, everybody's consciousness starts to return. That's that favoritism bullshit. These are the type of people that'll let dudes in the real world get away with crimes, so on and so forth, because quote unquote, they like them. Because they're way bigger fans of looking the other way when it doesn't support their narrative. He was a criminal, but to be fair, he wasn't always a criminal. What the fuck? Just because you like him, you're sick in the head. And here's the relevance of me bringing all this up. Lancelot in his saber form has now taken on the shoes of Gilgamesh. He is now the one being thresholded to make everybody else look good or get off some type of moral victory, and it looks goofy. It wouldn't even be as bad if you didn't tell me that he was the strongest 7 times in a row, as he mentioned. The interactions between Gil and Lancelot in Fate Zero, those were great interactions. I'm not talking about those. He clearly overestimated himself both times. I'm talking about the other times that Gil is thresholded. Saberlot is kind of filling those shoes. So when you talk about the issue of the characters that are high tier winning all the time, like Nasu brought up in his interview, you lend yourself to another trope where if there's a high tier character present, you know that nonsense is about to occur because somebody's getting thresholded. So it gives the false idea that you're fixing the problem by letting the mid guy win when you're really just recreating the problem for different reasons. There still has to be a balance. You still gotta let the high tier guys get it in. Some of these fights, you can map the whole thing out without even watching it. It's just the amount of yap that you decide to put in between them. You know, that's why I appreciate things like Strange Fake so much because you don't know what's about to happen. Nobody knew that the fight between Alcides, Gil, and Hippolyta was gonna end in a stalemate the first time around. Nobody knew that. But let that fight been main timeline. Hippolyta would have beat both of them right there. And this is what we have here. You have Lancelot showing up on multiple occasions not being the strongest. He never beat Arturia. He doesn't have a win in Zero. He does have wins in Camelot, but as you see as a part of this 007, he said relevant win. And that relevant is very key here. And I often see agent champion people like Fairy Knight Lancelot, his counterpart, Melusine, because she actually shows up. She's really that. When she went against Muramasa, she didn't contemplate dog walking him. She didn't kinda dog walk cakewalk him. No, Muramasa out his own mouth said she whooped my ass and threw me in a hole. That's what's actually going on. That's what I like to see. I don't know about anybody else, and that's just one thing. This is what Lancelot is supposed to be doing, and this is what happens. You end up with people like Lancelot and Artoria and Karna, Gil, Herc, that are supposed to be that, but that's hardly ever the case. It's very rare. Can I really rank Herc for beating up a couple high school kids? That situation comes out being far more impressive for Shiro just for surviving. And why do we end up here? It's just like politicians. People love the guy that will tell them what they want to hear. They love the guy that'll cradle their emotions and rub their head like a bitch. But God forbid the person that's actually supposed to be high tier be good. Who do you think you are? This statement about 0 high tier NPs, this should be a lie, because he has Arndite, which is literally supposed to be one of the best weapons you can have. Divine Construct, supernatural sword given to him by the Lady of the Lake, a brethren sword to Excalibur itself. By all intents, that's exactly what a high tier MP is. That gets kind of shaky when you have situations like him going against Arash. Arash gets hit and he just tanks the MP. On an offense level, yeah, Arash is like that. But on a durability level, he's not supposed to tank that MP like that. Not at all. So can you say that's false? The fight that he had with Saber, we can't even really call that a fight because it's more poetic than anything. So you wouldn't even really take that into consideration. The same thing can be said about his fight with Madge being possessed by Galahad. That fight also is supposed to be more poetic. That's not actually a fight. The whole time Lancelot is more confused than anything else. He doesn't even want to fight. He's allowing himself to get beat up. Those aren't fights. Plus, Galahad is the only one that beat Lancelot when he pulled up to Camelot in the myth. So that makes sense anyway. So when does he actually get to show up? The 0 relevant wins. This can be perceived as a lie because we know that he had the fight against Gawain where he mortally wounded him. He was the one that gave him the battle that led to his death. That was Lancelot, right? And it even showcases this in Camelot. It's not even like they don't take that fight into consideration. It visibly shows that in the series. So they regard this also. Even in the myth itself, he went mad. He took out Gawain. He took out Gareth. He took out Agravain. But that's in the myth. This is where the relevant comes in. What is he doing now? You see how that's a problem. And then we have the strongest statements. The Knight of the Lake, famed as the strongest of the Knights of the Round Table. The Knight of the Lake, admired as the strongest even among the Knights of the Round Table. Once the greatest knight, but consequentially his error was too severe. Even in a rebuttal that comes from Cringy. Let's look at this lineup. Lancelot and his forces managed to catch up with Chaldea, who are searching for Atlas Institute. The Chaldea group, Ritsuka, Mash, Bedivere, Sanzo, and Tota attempt to fight Lancelot, but are overpowered by him. However, they manage to escape. Ritsuka is a human. In this fight in particular, he's just standing there, giving emotional support. Mash, at this point in the story, hardly even knows herself until she's possessed by Galahad. Hardly even a threat majority of the time. And the ironic thing about it is that she's probably the most threatening one here. Bedivere, still a Knight of the Round Table, so he reaches a baseline, but he can't even fight to his full capabilities because he has to save Excalibur, so he's kind of just there. Sanzo is literally a Buddhist warrior monk. She's not even supposed to pose a threat to Lancelot. But then, later on in the movie, you have her going toe-to-toe with Mordred. So I don't know about that anymore either. That too was anime only, by the way. And then Tota is literally a guy that throws rice at you. Is this supposed to be the feats? This lineup? Bro, this should be like everybody against Aizen. All these people should go against him and they should still get clapped. There's nobody threatening here. They're supposed to get clapped. But wait, he beat Hassan of the Trembling Pipe off screen. Hassan of the Trembling Pipe lost to Lancelot, and Hassan of the Peeling Shadows lost to Gawain. Is this the relevant win for Lancelot? The strongest knight of the round? Hassan of the Trembling Pipe? Is that who he's supposed to brag to people about? The trembling pipe? This is ludicrous. The whole game is in shambles. Even if you flip over to Extella, which Berserker Lancelot is also a part of, it's mostly just a whole lot of talking going on. In his fight against Galahad, gets dicked down. Agravain loses. Wins. He scared Da Vinci, the artist. He beat the nigga whose main purpose in life was to draw and make sculptures. But this is supposed to be the GOAT. It's looking bad. Now, do I personally believe in that position that he has? Absolutely. But like I said in the altar video, I'm not into the coulda, woulda, shouldas. It's very rare where I look the other way for that. Because if we were gonna do that, we could have did it for everybody, realistically. So you gotta allow these people to actually be good. Stop telling me he's the best. Show me he's the best. When Melusine threw Muramasa in that hole, he said the average servant would have died 12 times. That's what really happened. So to segue back, he should definitely be stronger as long as he has a good master to supply him with the energy in his berserker form. He should be a crazy threat. I mean, we saw what he was doing in Orleans. Arendite, again, should be a certain level. Hard to say that's really the case. Here's the first comment. Saber Lancelot is overall the stronger one of the two, but Berserker Lancelot has better physical capabilities. For example, Berserker Lancelot was only capable of doing well as he did against Gilgamesh due to his Berserker stat boost, and that's a part of it. But is Saber Lancelot really the stronger of the two? Can you really prove that? Because I'm gonna tell you right here, just going through this video alone, he did way better in Zero than he did in Camelot. So what's up with that? I don't think that's true. Should be true, but until we see it, I'm not really hearing that. I could tell you that Lancelot Berserker doesn't have any debuffs to his techniques, etc, etc. But it would be useless because both in Extella Link and in Camelot, Gawain and Agravain suggest that the Mad Lancelot is unstoppable. Saberlot would still be better in a Holy Grail war because you could at least develop a strategy. I will give him that. You can at least communicate with Saberlot to say that you can give him a fair argument for being the better of the two. I would love to see how this strategy works against somebody like Emiya and Gilgamesh when the dude in the comment right before this just said that he was only hanging with Gil because of the Berserker boost. I'd love to see how that works out for him. I don't think Lancelot loses anything by being a Berserker. All of the downsides of being a Berserker, except for long-term planning, are minimized by other skills. One thing that I haven't seen in this thread yet is that Berserker can only use one MP at a time. This is important because Lancelot is a renowned dual wielder, and he could potentially act as an assassin with For Someone's Glory paired with Knight of the Owner. Saber has more versatility and less mana drain on the master. True, but here's the thing. He could potentially be an assassin, but show me where he did it. He would have more versatility and less drain on the master, but show me him being versatile as Saberlot. I bet you can't. Yet on the flip side, in Zero, you see him actually being versatile, using his sniper, using rifles. He's actually doing it. Hell, Saberlot even has a skill unlock that the Berserker form doesn't have that increases his stats even more. That's another thing that Saber has up on him. Sounds good on paper, sounds real good, but until he shows me something, you lost me.